This looks as if it's going to go down as the first major slowdown in the world economy. I won't say recession because we're not necessarily forecasting recession. That is caused by emerging markets and triggered by emerging markets. We had a sort of a dry run at this in 2015, but at that time the United States was slowing very sharply too, and Europe was pretty dull as well. So it didn't really count. But this time round, we're facing the fact that emerging markets, with China at 15% of world GDP and the non-Chinese EMs at 25% of world GDP, comprise 40% of the total. And if you measure it at comparable prices, it is more like 60% of the total, but we'll stick with the current price measures, which give you 40%. Well, 40%, of course, is enough to move the world, and the emerging markets are in serious trouble because basically the US and China have, in one form or another, laid off the pain of their incipient trade war in a rising dollar, a falling yuan, and therefore pain for the rest of the world, which has to pay more for its imports and less and be more competitive on its exports with a Chinese yuan that has gone down by 7 or 8% in trade-weighted real terms, just as the US dollar has gone up by about the same amount since last spring. So what actually happened was that the world slowdown seems to have started in the middle of the year with Q3, and indeed the countries most affected, which are Japan, Korea, and Taiwan amongst developed nations, and emerging markets generally in Southeast Asia, the Asian tigers, seem to have turned down then. And in fact, Japanese Q3 GDP was down by 0.6%, which is a pretty rapid rate of decline. And even in Germany, where the same kind of effects of rising cost of imports and falling yield of exports was reduced by 0.2% in quarterly GDP in the third quarter, with Italy down by 0.1% in parallel. So where we are now is that this high dollar is beginning to sap the US economy, and the world at large is into a downswing in 2019, which we don't expect to see turn into a recession necessarily, but which is unquestionably the end of the big upswing of this cycle.